It's no wonder why the city of Fresno and so many Valley businesses choose McHenry Protective and Investigative Services. With over 50 years of experience in public safety and security, McHenry's team of experts will safeguard you, your commercial property, and your next big event. Professional service, marked patrol vehicles, 24-hour dispatch, and friendly, observant, and responsive armed and unarmed guards are just a few of the reasons you should contact McHenry at 559-478-7747 or visit them online at mchenryprotection.com. Hi, I'm John Malos. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this day. Glad you are here on a Wednesday morning. We're talking about police shootings and the state of the Fresno Police Department and police shootings around the country. We have a local pastor in the house today, first-time guest. We'll talk to him, 436-MeTV option 11. And today's sponsor is McHenry Protective Services. Thank them for that. Back in a moment. Back here on the program on a Wednesday morning on the showroom floor at Ventura TV, my friends. You're watching us live on Comcast Channel 375 as usual. A quick programming note for tomorrow. We have a young lady who's coming in who totally revamped her life from top to bottom. I'm talking about mentally, emotionally, physically, what she eats, her diet, and the relationship between her and her family. So she's going to try to help us tomorrow. You can call in tomorrow's program as well. And then on Friday, another live program. We'll talk to a family, a young woman who lives here in Fresno who adopted a son. And you know what? She wrote a book about it. And she went through the adoption agency, went through foster care. She'll give us the whole kit and caboodle about what she went through to adopt her son that she wrote a book about. We'll go through it chapter and verse, A to Z, my friends. That'll be a very interesting program. And then on Monday, another live broadcast, we'll talk to a Democratic and a Republican operative about what's been going on, both on the Democratic side and certainly with Donald Trump on the Republican side. But for today, we're going to talk about the state of the Fresno Police Department. Before I get to that, I just do want to mention that we will talk about this article on the front page of the Fresno Bee today. It deals with the body cam issues and specifically Dylan Noble. It is not a very flattering report as far as the Fresno PD is concerned. We'll get into that during the course of the program. You can call in and make your comments. But yesterday, you may recall, Jackie Parks, the president of the Fresno Police Officers Association, was in here. He's been on the force for more than 30 years, and we did talk about the department and they're targeting African Americans right here in the city of Fresno. I do want to put a graphic up, and I want to show you this. This was in the Fresno Bee about a week, maybe a week and a half ago. Let's put up the graphic, show you what I'm talking about. According to the Office of Independent Review and the auditor, Richard Rasmussen, since January of last year, 53% of the shootings in Fresno were committed by African Americans. Out of more than 1,600 interviews, 396 were African Americans, 341 white, 748 Hispanic, but don't forget about 47% of the population in this area is Hispanic. 55 were Asian. Now let's change the graphic. The Fresno Police Department kept stats of its own. Last year there were 408 shootings, and they knew the race of about 231 of them. And out of those, 123 were committed by black suspects, according to Fresno PD. See, I'm not pulling these out of thin air, my friends. 92 were Hispanic. Now, Police Chief Jerry Dyer recently defended his launch of a series of investigations targeting black gangs, like the notorious Dog Pound gang. All members were black, and they were arrested in a sweep. Here's Jerry Dyer.
The truth of the matter is, the reason we're in many of these neighborhoods and policing, because we know that's where the violence occurs. We unfortunately know that 53% of the shootings that occur in Fresno are committed by African Americans, even though they only make up 7.7% of the population, or 8%. So it stands to reason that our officers are going to be in those neighborhoods for the protection of people. And during that time, they're going to be making traffic stops, detaining people, and there's a potential for confrontation. But people want us in those neighborhoods. The people that live there, sometimes they're prisoners in their own home, and they want us to be there protecting them. So I think the injustice is sometimes when we have a false narrative that the police are brutal. We sure have our incidents in America today where police officers use excessive force. So there's a perceived use of excessive force. When that happens, when that one incident happens, no matter where it is in our nation, it's caught on an iPhone, put on YouTube, and it goes viral for everybody to see and everybody to make a judgment. Over 900,000 police officers in America today, handling tens of millions of calls, and when they make one mistake, everybody in America knows about it. That's injustice.
Live in our studio now is Ruben Scott. Glad he is here. He's the pastor at the Providence Community Baptist Church. He is here to talk about this and much more. He's known Chief Dyer for many years. He's been a pastor for about 55 years. He knows all the issues surrounding African Americans, not only in this area, city of Fresno, but around the country, and he knows what's going on. We'll also talk about Chief or Deputy Chief Chief Foster. Remember, he got into trouble. That issue came up yesterday with Jackie Parks. We'll get his take on that and what it did to harm the African American community here in Fresno, which only makes up about 7 to 8%. You heard what Jerry Dyer said. Now let's get the other side from one of our African American pastors here and get your comments as well. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back in just a moment.
Attention all units. We have reports of 2 motorcycle cops protecting California's highway.
That's for us, good buddy.
The Men of Chips are on MeTV.
Hi, I'm John Baker. I'm John Baker. It's Officer Baker.
He's the blonde one.
Hi there!
Officer Poncherello, man. Frank Poncherello. Oh, I'm Frank Poncherello.
And he's the one who's Eric Estrada.
There's no way I wouldn't remember a name like that.
Catch the blonde one and the one who's Eric Estrada on
Now on
Chips.
MeTV Fresno, Xfinity 187.
It's no wonder why the city of Fresno and so many Valley businesses choose McHenry Protective and Investigative Services. With over 50 years of experience in public safety and security, McHenry's team of experts will safeguard you, your commercial property, and your next big event. Professional service, marked patrol vehicles, 24-hour dispatch, and friendly, observant, and responsive armed and unarmed guards are just a few of the reasons you should contact McHenry at 559-478-7747 or visit them online at mchenryprotection.com. Back here on the program, 436-ME-TV, option 11. You know, we've talked about this the last couple of days. Chief Dyer talking about the African-American community being targeted, especially in that notorious gang, the Dog Pound. I do have a call here. Caller, I'm going to ask you to hang on a moment. Got to introduce our guest. So, Pastor Ruben Scott, good to see you. Welcome to the program, first-time guest. And caller, I'm going to ask you to hang on. Just comment on what you heard and saw in the monologue, what you heard and saw from Jerry Dyer, the police chief, a man you've known for many years. What's your reaction to this?
First of all, what caught my eye were the statistics.
Yeah.
That African Americans shootings, but it does not say gang related.
It did, well, yeah, it did. The article and the report did not say whether or not it was, in fact, gang-related.
See, this is one of our problems, is communications.
Right.
Because,
now, the Dog Pound, that is a gang.
Yeah, that is
that
is a gang community.
Yeah, and they took that gang
But
out.
your stats at 53% of the shootings in Fresno of African Americans.
Are you questioning that stat?
No, not questioning the stat. I'm questioning the presentation of the stats.
Okay.
It did not say gang-related. If you read that right up front, you assume that all African Americans, that's 50%, regardless of what, somehow are capable
Maybe, and I'm not
of being involved in shooting.
I'm not taking sides here. I'm just saying, I'm suggesting that maybe some of these shootings that took place that involved African Americans, maybe some of those people were not involved in gangs. Maybe they were just random. Maybe it was a robbery gone bad, or I don't know. I'm speculating.
Okay, well, I always have to question studies that are, and particularly inductive studies, because I have to ask myself, okay, now how broad was the representation of their sample? Okay, so apparently the Rasmussen or the Office of Independent Review had a pool of folks that they interviewed, in order to get these stats.
Witnesses, yeah.
Witnesses in order to get these stats.
Yeah.
I would like to know where did these witnesses come from,
Let's
and how many of them did they interview?
Yeah, I'm going to go to our caller now. Go ahead, Carrie. Our caller's been patient. We'll take this call. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Pastor Scott. Do you have the church that's right over by Edison at the edge?
Yes,
of the
I do.
there? Okay, yeah, I
By
met
Edison,
you
right.
whenever we were going through the thing, whenever they're trying to eminent domain the properties on the west side, and I guess that Ivanka Trump stopped that pretty much from happening. But there's a huge problem with the corruption, I'd say, with that, the Foster guy and all that over there on the west side. Everybody knows everybody. And there's collateral damage going on, and I think that it's really your duty to brief the citizens over there on the west side, like the traffic stops, they need to comply whenever those cops pull them over. I mean, it's a life and death deal anymore because there's extreme prejudice. There's people like Foster that have sold people out in those neighborhoods, and basically we got SWAT hit squads over there.
Yeah, we have a...
And that's going on a lot.
Yeah.
Too much.
I understand. I want to get the pastor's reaction here because you're looking at a photo of Keith Foster. He's the former deputy chief here in the city of Fresno, taken down by the feds for allegedly and being accused of a federal crime of selling drugs. I don't know if he was using. His trial's coming up. Innocent until proven guilty. But perhaps, Pastor, you could talk about what this did. Was it an emotional blow to the African American community in terms of the way Keith Foster was arrested?
Well, obviously, when one of our leaders is involved in any kind of activity that blights what we try to do in the community, there's a concern. Yes, the black community was concerned about Keith's issues, and they haven't yet fully been resolved, so we're not going to try to make any judgments about it.
Well, innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
Let the man have his say in court.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I wish that all involved would do that. This gentleman that just called seemed to be connecting Keith's situation with the shootings in Fresno, and I don't make that connection. Maybe
no, there is no connection to that. This is a totally separate thing. And if you saw the interview or even the video of Jerry Dyer when Keith Foster was arrested and taken down, Dyer was stunned, shocked.
Well, all of us were stunned.
Stunned.
All of us were stunned. I know the Foster family well, and I know Keith, and we were all stunned. But we still have to wait until he has his day in court, and then we can make some other judgments about that situation.
Well, what specifically bothers you? And I heard what you said at the top. What specifically bothers you? Now here is a this guy Richard Rasmussen. He's the auditor. The Office of Independent Review. This did not come from the police department. They took these stats from witnesses. So would it make a difference whether or not these African Americans that actually committed these crimes of shooting someone or shooting at someone, would it make a difference as to whether or not they're gangs or not? They're still shooting.
That's not my issue.
What's the issue?
The presentation of the graphic.
Let's put that graphic back up. The Rasmussen.
Presupposes, when you read it, presupposes that all African Americans in Fresno are somehow involved in shootings. Look at that.
Wait a minute. Keep that up there now. Let's read that.
Okay.
Since January of 2015, African Americans were responsible for 53% of the shootings, according to eyewitnesses.
Okay. Now, I would have phrased that 53% of the shootings that occurred in the African American community are committed by African Americans were all as a result of gang-related activity.
Well, we don't know that.
Okay. Well, then. Let me
borrow that article because we took it from the article in the Fresno.
Well, I read it also. But I think that is how confusion occurs in the media.
It says right in here. It says black suspects were responsible for 53% of the shootings in
That-
Fresno
that's not
since
what that's not what
January
that's not what that said.
2015.
That does not
Well,
say
it-
black suspects.
Okay.
That does not say black suspects. That says 53% of shootings, according to eyewitnesses.
Okay, since January 20, African Americans were responsible. But we're mincing words here.
maybe. No, I'm not. If they are suspects, then we can make that other connection that they might be gang related.
Well, the only thing that's left out of there would be suspects. But let's go to the next graphic.
Okay.
But that doesn't take away from the.
No,
the
we're not saying that the shootings didn't occur.
All right.
All right. I'm not going to argue with the percentages even.
Right. Right.
But okay, now here we have 123 committed by black suspects, but your intro does not say that.
Right. Right. But it doesn't have to say that. It says that right there on the third line.
It satisfies me that you're not blanketing. That you're not making
That's
a
not what we're
blanket
trying to
case
do, Pastor,
against
and
it.
I think you know that.
Well, I know you're not, but I'm saying the way it is presented in the paper, that's probably the way it will be perceived by many others in the
Right,
black
but right
community.
there it says out of the 408 shootings, if you want to believe the Fresno Police Department, and these are their numbers.
Okay, they say race was known. So
out of 408 shootings, only 231 they knew what the race was of those suspects.
Okay, so that's 50%.
Okay, so out of the 231, they say that black suspects committed those shootings.
Okay,
That's according to Fresno
okay,
PD.
out of 231, right,
Right.
123 of them.
92 of them were Hispanic.
Okay.
So what I'm asking is that, do you have a problem with this report, the Rasmussen report in general? You read the paper. We have another phone call here.
Yeah.
Let's take the call. Go ahead. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air. Lively discussion here. We want to make sure that the pastor leaves happy here at Ventura TV.
I will leave
We
happy.
don't want to show any bias here today, but go ahead. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Well, I don't even know if my comment will make them happy, but I'm a retired police officer from the 80s to the early 90s.
Okay.
And let me tell you that 99% of the black people that I stopped on traffic stops, their first thing came out of their mouths was, "You stopped me because I'm black." Okay. Then I tell them, "No, you did this, you did that." And then they start going back to times when they were in slavery and stuff. And I tell them, "Look, that was back then. This is now." And every time you arrest a black person, you have any contact with a black person, the first thing that came out of their mouth is, "Because I'm black and because of slavery."
I didn't hear that. Stay
Now-
there, caller. Caller, can you hear me?
Yes.
Let me say this. I never heard that from Keith Foster. Never, when the feds came in and they arrested him, I never heard anything about race other than the fact that he maybe let down some people in the African American community. That's the only thing I heard. I never heard anybody yell,
yeah.
"Oh, they arrested Keith Foster because he's African American." I never heard that once. Maybe you did. I didn't.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm talking about the 80s and 90s. It just escalated more.
Right.
I think after Rodney King got beat up,
Right.
then it got worse.
Okay.
So
stay on the
you know,
line there. Stay on the line. Go ahead. You want to talk to the caller?
Well, I'm not one of the opinion that every traffic stop that an officer makes is based solely on race. I'm not one of those
Could
persons.
some of them be?
I do have a suspicion that some of them are.
They might be.
That they might be, but not all of them are based on the fact that that it has to be
But we agree
a
that
person
maybe
of color.
some are.
Some are. I do believe that
Yeah.
some of them are based.
Right. Like for
On
example,
race.
For example, what are you doing in this neighborhood?
Yeah.
That type of thing. Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't know how that we can do that now. Now that Northwest is beginning to have issues, and for a long
Well,
time,
do you know the
Northwest was
president of
immune
the
to
Fresno
it.
Black Chamber of Commerce? Do you know? You know
Yes,
who he is?
yes, I know.
Okay, he has been on this program many times. He said that he has been stopped in Northwest Fresno and asked, "What are you doing in this neighborhood?"
Well, I'm sure. I'm sure.
So we
I'm
know
sure.
that for a fact. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Okay, it's all right. I'm not saying that all traffic stops by police officers are based on race, but I have a sneaky suspicion that many of them are.
Caller, do you want to respond to that? Do you want to have a little conversation here with the pastor?
Well, maybe nowadays, because of the way the gangs that are escalating, the blacks have their gangs, the Mexicans have their gangs, the whites have their gangs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it right now it's a triple threat. Because you got and the Asians. I forgot the Asians.
Yeah.
Okay, now you got quadruple threats of one of those people are in a gang or doing drugs or carrying a revolver. All I just want to say that in my time, it's not as dangerous as it is now. So, keep in mind, okay, I don't agree for the shooting that just happened in Clovis. I think once they shot him once or twice and he was down, I don't know what efforts they should have done. They should have just rolled the guy over and handcuffed him because he was already down. So, I mean, I think that's using excessive force,
So
especially the last shot.
You're questioning the last two shots that were pumped into Dylan Noble. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that was unnecessary.
Right. Well, we'll find out.
Because
Yeah.
well, yeah, because one we were taught once the suspect's down.
Yeah.
And he's not moving very much. Then that's when we rushed him and handcuffed him.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we evaluated the injury. Then we called the ambulance.
All right, good call. Thank you very much for calling in. I appreciate you watching. Go ahead and comment.
I appreciate that that you are making a difference between time frames because I think the time frames are important. In the 70s and the 60s and 80s, we did not have the tension in the black community with the police department that we now have. That does not
When
say.
did it start? Rodney King?
After Rodney King, we started having many of these issues.
Because of the graphic video that
Not
we
only
saw?
the graphic video, but many of our young people had been experiencing that kind of brutality.
Hang on, caller.
When they've gotten arrested.
And with the officers involved in that Rodney King case, they were acquitted in the first trial in Simi Valley, which is an all-white area.
All-white area. So that
Right.
that doesn't make it any better.
Right.
Since
And the beating did not take place in Simi
in Simi Valley. It
Yes.
took place someplace else.
Yes, it did. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead. Short on time.
Yes, I have a comment regarding Chief Foster. They claim that nobody in the police department knew he was dealing or selling drugs. I don't believe that. For instance, we had a manager at Transit that was using and providing drugs to the employee. That was reported by a retired sheriff from Madera and a lead worker. The city knew about it, the city plus knew about it, but they just swept it under the table. So I believe there's a lot of favoritism between certain races. Now this man is a city manager now. Now what is he doing now?
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. I didn't get all of what he said.
I
did
didn't
you?
either.
That was a little muffled and garbled. So.
I didn't either. But from what I've read in the papers, that much of what Deputy Foster was involved in had to do with prescription drugs, and that's a little difficult case to make.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. 436 MeTV option 11. We're talking with Ruben Scott. He's the pastor at the Providence Community Baptist Church. He is here to talk about all sorts of problems. Back after this from McHenry Protective Services. It's no wonder why the city of Fresno and so many Valley businesses choose McHenry Protective and Investigative Services. With over 50 years of experience in public safety and security, McHenry's team of experts will safeguard you, your commercial property, and your next big event. Professional service, marked patrol vehicles, 24-hour dispatch, and friendly, observant, and responsive armed and unarmed guards are just a few of the reasons you should contact McHenry at 559-478-7747 or visit them online at mchenryprotection.com.
We get our speed from Mom and Dad. They do stuff super fast. And now they got this new kitchen, so they're even faster. So they can help us with our free throws.
The time-saving Frigidaire Gallery line with a quick preheat and smudge-proof stainless steel that resists fingerprints and cleans easily. It's mealtime in no time, from start to clean. Frigidaire Gallery.
Save more during Frigidaire Gallery bonus days when you buy 3 or more qualifying appliances. See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
Back here on the program, 436 MeTV option 11. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, John. I have a question for the pastor there. Has he ever been on a ride-along with police officers? And if he has he paid attention that the officers mostly patrol the poorer neighborhoods like the blacks and Hispanics? And I think that's why the blacks and Hispanics stick out as far as the statistics, because there's more activity, because it's an economic factor. You know, there's hardly less jobs for them. And, you know, they're mostly the ones who are doing the activities because there are less less jobs for them. So they're out there, you know, trying to make their money.
Okay.
And that's all I have to say.
So, yeah, as I get it, the question was, have you ever been on a ride-along?
I have not been on a ride-along, but I taught at Fresno City College, and I have trained a lot of police officers.
Explain that, if you would.
In the classroom, obviously, you get anecdotal information from those who work in the field, and I've had many to tell me about their experiences out in the community, and particularly in the black community. Many of them know the young people by names. I mean, it's amazing. The kind of contact that police officers have with people in the community.
So at what point in your life were you teaching police officers how to patrol?
Not how to patrol. No, they were taking regular classroom work in order.
Where was this now?
This is at Fresno City College.
Okay.
But in the classroom,
what were you teaching?
I teach critical thinking as well as philosophy.
Okay.
For many years. So I used to get a lot of feedback from my former students.
Who were police officers?
Who were police officers.
And what would they tell you?
And very often they would tell me what it's like to go out into the community, Hispanic or black community, and some of the experiences that they had.
And what was your advice to them, sir?
Well, of course, my advice to them is always, number one, understand the nature of the situation that you're in. Always. If you can. Okay. A lot of times you can't.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, a lot of times you can't. But I think it's important to understand the situation.
Hang on, caller.
Clarify your perplexity that you find yourself in, and then see what is the best course of action. Sometimes you can't always do that.
And sometimes these decisions, as you know, Pastor, have to take place within a split second.
Yeah, they are split-second decisions.
You know, you're talking to somebody on the radio, you have a partner, okay, what do we do? We're surrounded, blah, blah, blah. Okay, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
I used to own a 63 Chevy Impala, and I was pulled over because the officer thought that I was casing out the neighborhood because it was a nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
And when they walked up to the door, saw I was white, said, "Oh, I did not expect to see you in here." Hey, I get it. Guess what else? I was at a deep pit barbecue in the black part of town, and one guy decided he was going to say I could not be there because I was not black. And I went up to the homeowner. Homeowner said, "No problem. Hang out here. Come in the house." Very friendly. One bad apple does not make everybody bad. That's my comment.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah,
I'll agree with that. And I think, unfortunately, much of our communications today is based on one bad apple tarnishing whole groups. And that's why I have some trouble with the statistics that you put up there. I think that it would have been better if we had said gang suspects.
Well, we don't know that they were gangs.
Well,
I can't
okay.
really put that up there if we don't know that they're gang members.
But
hang on, caller.
Yeah, if the assumption is, it says that headline says African Americans, blacks.
No. Fresno police data: blacks more likely to be detained.
Okay, no, I want the one on the shootings. The statistics on the shootings.
Well, that's up on the screen. We can put that up just real quick here. Yeah.
Okay. I like for data to be as specific as it possibly can because it can skew one's point of view.
Right, but this doesn't mean that all African Americans
are. But maybe not for you and me because I teach critical thinking, so we can we can delineate that in our own minds, but not for John Doe citizen who might see that. You mean all blacks? 53% of our black folks are involved in shootings, and it's not black. It's not black folks.
Caller. Hang on, caller.
It's not black folks. It's probably young people, black young people, who are involved. It doesn't say that. It's not specific. It doesn't say that.
Well, I disagree with you to a certain extent, but let's go to the
That's
caller.
fine.
Go ahead.
I kind of disagree with both of you. First of all, I wouldn't call them African Americans. I just call them persons of color. Back in Louisiana, I've been gone for about 11 years, and I love them. Okay, I don't look black. If you saw me, I look kind of white. But nevertheless, back there, it's persons of color. And probably 90% of the shootings in the Shreveport, Baton Rouge, Louisiana are if they're not done by law enforcement, done by persons of color for whatever reason. But that's not the point. The point is, in the numbers you got up here, they're skewed. I mean, you have more shootings. You actually have about 25% of the shootings by persons of color. If you look at the total number, you have 53% if you look at the numbers of the ones where they race profile. You have 232 or something like that, but the numbers back up. And 123 of them, that's where you get to 53%. But if you take the total number of shootings, 400 and something, 128 doesn't work out at 53%. If you see what I'm saying.
You're making
but we're making an issue out of something. Yeah, but we're making an issue out of something, regardless of who it is. If it's a person of color, if it's a preacher or whatever, you're making an issue out of something which does nothing but cause more dissension and more unrest, even in his own community. He gives those minimal thinkers a direction to go to have more animosity and do more things incorrectly than coming at it from a different, more positive view. I mean, I have family members, cousins, or relations, or persons of my gender. It's better to go to them personally in my own community and elevate them mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, and give them a better direction to go than to do this with a proposition or whatever.
All right, running short.
That's my opinion. But anyway, you kids have a great day. I'm glad you answered the phone.
Hey, I'm glad you called. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Now let's put that graphic back up before I go to a break, because I do want to point out something that at the top of the screen you will see, waiting for it to come back up. There it is. It says African Americans in Fresno involved in crime. Those would be suspects. Now, what it should have said maybe is since January 2015, African American suspects were responsible for 53% of the shootings, according to eyewitnesses. And that is according to eyewitnesses. They didn't just pull this out of a hat. So, that is, nonetheless, that is an alarming stat that African Americans only make up about 8% of the population. yet they're committing a lot of crime in Fresno, and I think that issue needs to be addressed. Caller, I'm going to put you on hold. I'm going to go to a break. 436 MeTV option 11. McHenry Protective Services, our sponsor today. It's no wonder why the city of Fresno and so many Valley businesses choose McHenry Protective and Investigative Services. With over 50 years of experience in public safety and security, McHenry's team of experts will safeguard you, your commercial property, and your next big event. Professional service, marked patrol vehicles, 24-hour dispatch, and friendly, observant, and responsive armed and unarmed guards are just a few of the reasons you should contact McHenry at 559-478-7747 or visit them online at mchenryprotection.com.
Explore strange new worlds on MeTV. Seek out new life.
I've seen old photographs of this period. Let's get out of here.
And new civilizations. Boldly go to Mayberry and the Andy Griffith Show.
Weeknights at 8 on MeTV Fresno.
436 MeTV option 11. Back here on the program. Caller, you are live on Connect with Me. What is your question, please? You've been patient and waited until after the break. Thank you.
Yes, I want to make a couple of quick comments here. They want to talk about gangs and all that, and the
you'll have to speak up, caller.
Negative influence of gangs in this country. The most brutal gang that's ever been in the United States was the Italians. You remember how brutal they were, and those people own judges, they own police commissioners, they influenced presidential elections. They were controlling whole sections of the country. But now that they've laundered their money, now they're legitimate, and that now they can walk out in the streets, and people are not supposed to say anything about them. And also, my grandfather said 50 years ago, we'll know that we've arrived. He's talking about Mexican people. We'll know we've arrived in this country when we can steal at the point of a pen instead of a point of a gun. He was talking about Wall Street, bankers, anybody that rips people off legally. That's why he said, stay in school. Learn how to steal at the point of a pen instead of a point of a gun. All right, thank you.
What do you make of that?
Greed is good, somebody said, right?
Wait a minute. You're supposed to be a man of God. You're a pastor. Are you encouraging greed?
I am not encouraging greed, but I have to chuckle at the comment of this caller, and that attitude is out there. That the Wall Street people believe that philosophically they believe that screw whoever you can. That's right.
All right. So address the question. Fresno only has 8% of the population as African Americans. Why are they involved in so much of this crime? Isn't that really the crux of the issue?
The crux of the issue is that we as a community have not done have not done a good job of developing economic strategies that help black people.
So you acknowledge that is a too high a number for African Americans.
It is too high a number.
I mean, considering the low population that we have here of African Americans in the Central Valley.
I do acknowledge that. I can't argue with the statistics, but part of this problem is that of economic development in the black community, as well as throughout the community, that helps to address the job
needs. You're talking about economic disadvantages?
Yes.
So what should be done? Do you have any solutions? What should be done?
Well, what I would like to see is that some of these billionaires come in and adopt a small community like Southwest Fresno and Southeast Fresno. They could do it and infuse money into economic development that provides jobs for young people, or at least a possibility of young people getting jobs after some course of study or other.
Well, why don't you talk to a guy named Darius Assemi? A developer. I mean, he's a guy. I wanted to have him on the program here one day, and we did have him booked for weeks. In fact, 2 months in advance. And the day came that he was supposed to be here.
And the Housing Authority has done some business together, so I know.
Okay, but he stood us up on this program. He didn't even show up. He stood us up, so that's why we didn't have him. But you're on the Housing Authority still. Yeah. You probably know Darius, don't you?
Okay, but I'm not representing the Housing Authority here. I'm representing.
I know that.
Okay.
But don't you want guys like Assemi? They have money.
Yeah.
Darius came here with
I want
money.
anyone who has money, who's willing to invest in developing Southeast and Southwest
Well,
Fresno
he's investing in
economically.
downtown. Why can't he? And that's part of Southwest.
Yes, part of it. But
But why can't he invest into the other section of Southwest?
I can't.
Why don't we call him on
I
it?
can't speak for their priorities.
Why don't we call him on it?
Yeah. Well, you know, I talk in circles where I can make my voice heard.
But you can talk here, and your voice will be heard. I guarantee you. They're watching.
Anyone who's willing to build some kind of businesses in West Fresno to hire people.
Caller, we're short on time, but go ahead. You're on with the pastor. Go ahead.
Well, I've seen from both sides of the bars. I haven't caused trouble in a long time, but I think a lot of the problems have to do with the culture of the suspect as much as their cooperation and obeying the directives the cops should give them. I've been over 14. My wife locks up during the time, and that's way behind me now, but it seems like people have had problems when they were complaining to police officers when they didn't listen and follow absolutely what the people tell them.
Okay.
May not be fair, but she's getting
all right. Thank you very much. He basically said that you develop problems with police officers if you don't do what they tell you to do. Basically, that's what I heard him say in the last part of that.
And that's
if you don't comply, if you're not complying with the officer's demands.
Yeah, but see,
that's
Mr. Castile did comply, and they killed him anyway.
Well, we don't know that.
Well, that's
we don't know because the videotape is very limited in what we see.
Okay, but that is what's being propagated, that he did comply.
We don't have evidence of that. We only have what the officer said, what his girlfriend said at the time, and the videotape where it starts after he was shot, not before.
Okay.
So unfortunately, we don't have the evidence of that. But I will.
We'll leave the jury out on that until I come back again.
We got another call, and I have so much
until we come back again.
Hang on, caller. Go ahead. Hang on, caller.
When you have young people who have been in some ways mistreated by a police officer, and they have a history of being mistreated by a police officer, it's difficult,
right?
Even for young people, to comply when they know that the officer is not acting in the person's best interest.
All right, caller, you're on the air. It's short on time. Please, if you're on speaker, get off speaker, please. I appreciate it.
Hello?
Yeah, you're on the air. Go ahead, quickly.
Okay. My comment is, and I believe that those numbers, but sometimes people say it's African Americans committing these crimes when they are not, in fact, committing these crimes. So if you can please comment on that. They, throughout time, they've said it was an African American kidnapped my child or did this when, in fact, an African American did not do that. So I don't believe those numbers are that high, but I believe they are high. They're too high.
Okay. Thank you for the call. I really appreciate it. And I do want to talk about the numbers because Jackie Parks was here. I'm sure you know him, president of the Fresno Police Officers Association. You've been around a long time. You know just about everybody in town, I assume. So Jackie Parks was asked about those numbers and the African Americans committing such, so much in terms of crime here, in terms of suspects. We're talking about suspects. You saw the numbers we put up on the screen. I questioned Jackie Parks on it yesterday. Here's what he had to say. Are African Americans being targeted?
I don't think they're being targeted. I think what we're targeting is crime.
Hang on, caller.
And I think that's what you're going to see across America with police departments is we target crime. Right. We don't decide who calls the police department and reports a crime. That's citizens calling in and reporting a crime. And I'll give you an example. There's been a lot of concern amongst that Black Lives Matters group and some in the African American community, or some that believe they represent the African American community, talking about disproportionate crime and that African Americans are stopped more frequently than anybody else. And it's important to understand that police officers respond to crime. We respond to calls for service. So if our dispatchers are taking calls from citizens and they are identifying the suspect as an African American male or an African American female, then that's the suspects that we're looking for. We can't go out and contact a white suspect or a white person or a Hispanic person or an Asian person when we've been told the suspect is African American. And I'll give you some numbers that I think will probably shock you, John. Since January of 2015 to July, I believe it's July 11th of 2016, so this last month, an 18-month period, there has been in the city of Fresno 663 shootings, reported shootings, 663. That's a lot of shootings. Out of that,
It's over the course of how many months?
18
That's
months.
18 months, yeah.
663 shootings in 18 months.
In the city of Fresno.
In the city of Fresno.
Okay.
Out of that, 354 of those shootings have a known race of the suspect. That means a witness or a reporting party or a victim told the officers that the suspect that was shooting is a white male or white female or African American or Asian. So we have that known race. So out of 354 shootings, 53% are African American, 40% are Hispanic, 3.9% are Asian, and 3% are white. What is telling about that is, first of all, it's way too high, right? But 53% of the shootings are African Americans, but they only represent 8% of our community.
From witnesses, right?
That is correct. That is not police officers saying that. That is the people reporting.
Jackie Parks on our show yesterday saying they don't target race, they target crime. 663 shootings in 18 months, 354 they know the race, 53% of those African Americans.
Okay, they target crime, yet 1 out of every 5 African Americans are stopped. Are they stopping those African Americans because there's probable cause or for some other reason?
I don't know that we have a stat on that.
Okay, but Jackie didn't say anything about that.
Maybe we don't have a stat on that.
Maybe we don't. But you see, to tell me that 663 shootings and half of those were by African Americans, that can pretty much be documented.
No, that's not correct. 663 shootings in 18 months.
In 18 months.
Right. Out of 354 of those, they know the race.
Yeah.
No, they know what the race is. That doesn't mean African Americans. That means 354, they know what the race is. It could be white, it could be black, it could be brown. So of the 354, 53% of that 354 is
African American.
African American.
Okay.
So
I can't quarrel with those stats.
Right.
I'd like to research them myself to make sure that they're credible.
And according to him, these are according to eyewitness accounts.
Okay. And I'd like to know who those eyewitnesses are, because African Americans don't talk that
on each
much.
other.
don't talk that much.
All
But be that as it may. All right. But 1 out of 5 African Americans are stopped for something. Now, do they have probable cause?
Where do you get that stat?
It was in Fresno Bee also. A couple of weeks ago.
What's the source? I want to know the source.
Fresno Bee is the source. I don't have the Rasmussen. I don't have the Rasmussen backup.
Caller, quickly. We're short on time.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I agree.
Yes, to Mr. Scott. I'm a Hispanic, and I grew up in the gangs and all that. But the difference is, 15, 20 years ago was respect for the law enforcement. Nowadays, they're afraid to, even talk to a law enforcement. But Mr. Scott, let me ask you a question. What would you, as well as I, do to help these young kids get out of the gangs so there wouldn't be that kind of a rate percentage as far as shootings and whatnot?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I agree that there ought to be strategies and mechanisms put in place.
You mentioned economic development. Is that the answer?
But economic development is a big, big problem.
All right.
A big problem. And if we could do something to bring in some jobs for these young people with a future.
Okay. Well, if Darius is out there listening, and I know these people watch the show, and a lot of these politicians watch this show, if you're out there You know, I mean, you stood us up once. Come on in. You're still welcome here
Yeah.
if you want to come in and explain it. 436-ME-TV option 11. Matter of fact, the interview that you saw at the beginning of the program with Jerry Dyer, guess who conducted that interview? Darius Assemi with some kind. Yeah, that was Darius talking to the chief. Okay. Anyway, all right. Back in just a moment after this from McHenry Protective Services. It's no wonder why the city of Fresno and so many Valley businesses choose McHenry Protective and Investigative Services. With over 50 years of experience in public safety and security, McHenry's team of experts will safeguard you, your commercial property, and your next big event. Professional service, marked patrol vehicles, 24-hour dispatch, and friendly, observant, and responsive armed and unarmed guards are just a few of the reasons you should contact McHenry at 559-478-7747 or visit them online at mchenryprotection.com.
Tune in to Heartland for the best in true country music. Relive vintage specials, one-of-a-kind concerts, and country music's earliest videos. Heartland is the heart of country, the only place where you can find country music, country stars, and country lifestyles 24/7. Heartland, the heart of country.
Now on channel 13.2.
All right, there's a report out today, front page of the Fresno Bee, about the body cams used around the country, not only in the city of Fresno, but in terms of, you know, how they rate. They're at the bottom of the scale here in Fresno, and in many other parts of around the country. You'll be surprised at how many big cities are involved. I'm talking about San Francisco, New York, Boston, Ferguson, which is not a big town, and you know, obviously, what happened there with Michael Brown. Let's roll a videotape, the body cam of Dylan Noble. He was shot not all that long ago. Roll it, take it. I want to talk about this report that was out. An organization called the Leadership Conference takes place in Washington, D.C. It is a civil and human rights coalition. Do we have the video? Yes or no? Let's roll it. And it's released the top 50 worst cities in America where local police use body cams when coming in contact with suspects. This is the Dylan Noble body cam video that has been released. I'm not sure if this is all of it, but this is a portion of it. The Fresno Police Department tops the list as one of the worst in 8 different categories. And of course, the body cam video became the focal point in the shooting death of 19-year-old Dylan Noble on June 25th, when friends and family wanted the footage immediately released. But the police department, Chief Jerry Dyer, said at the time no, that it would compromise the investigation. All right, it finally was released. Fresno received some of the lowest marks by the Leadership Conference when it comes to the following issues and categories. Number 1, making its policy public and readily available. Number 2, limits officer discretion on when to record. Number 3, addresses personal privacy concerns, for example, while interviewing a sex crime victim. Number 4, prohibits officer pre-report viewing. Number 5, limits retention of footage. Protects footage against tampering and misuse. That's number 6. Number 7, makes footage available to individuals filing complaints. And number 8, limits the use of biometric technologies. Chief Dyer calls this report flawed. He challenged most of its conclusions. Other cities, as I mentioned, Baltimore, Baton Rouge, Boston, New York, Oakland, San Fran, San Diego, Ferguson. Michael Brown was shot and killed there. It sparked the Black Lives Matter movement. And by the way, as I'm looking at this body cam video, I should point out that also a toxicology report came out on Dylan Noble, Pastor. You know about that.
Yes,
0.12 blood alcohol level for Noble when he was stopped, and he also had traces of cocaine in his system. All right, we know it's going to go to trial, or it may not. They may settle out of court. As you know, Warren Pabugian, one of the attorneys filing a lawsuit against the Fresno Police Department for an unlawful death. And so I'm not sure we want to play this out in its entirety, because you see here they're pulling into the Chevron station. You know what happens next. The police officers have already pulled out their guns. Noble stops. He gets out of the vehicle, the truck there, and you know, he walks toward the officers. He backs up. He comes back in unarmed. They shoot him dead, and then the final 2 shots pumped into him while he's on the ground. So before we go to our call, Pastor Ruben Scott, what do you make of this report in terms of body cams? Now, this came from a very well-respected organization in Washington, D.C.
I have seen similar conclusions in other reports. I do think that the technology needs to be improved, particularly when the officer can turn his stuff off whenever he wishes.
Yes.
That's an issue as far as I'm concerned.
How about the other issue? The family was complaining, the family of Dylan Noble, that the police department was not releasing that videotape in a timely fashion.
Is
that another issue?
Yes, it is. Transparency is important in when you have this kind of encounter. Now, we talk about split-second reactions to stuff, but in a critical situation like this, where life and death is involved, that cam should be running.
So you don't agree with Chief Dyer? Chief Dyer says, that report is flawed. You don't think it's flawed?
No, I'm not saying that the report is flawed. I'm just saying that I have read other reports where body cams.
But Chief Dyer says it's flawed.
Okay, well,
You don't agree with
No, I'm not going to argue with the chief.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue with the chief.
Okay.
But all I'm saying is that I have seen other reports
that are similar.
That are similar to this one.
Right. Okay. And it bothers you, and it bothers other people.
Of course. We want transparency.
Yeah. Well, we haven't had that at City Hall since Mayor Ashley Swearingen has been there, have we? I don't know. What do you think of the job she's done? Has she helped African Americans? Yes or no?
Well, she's done, given the constraints that she has to work with. I think she's done an admirable job.
Okay. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, at the top of the show, you guys played a clip of Jerry Dyer, and he said at the end of it that the true injustice was people recording these incidents on camera and posting them on YouTube and them going viral for everyone to see, for everyone to have an opinion about. And he said that was the true injustice. And earlier in the show, you mentioned Rodney King and the footage from that. So with the increase in, the number of cameras that people have, like everyone has a camera these days, and there's just more videos coming out every day. I just think it's kind of irresponsible for the chief to say that, some evidence of police, misconduct,
right,
shooting people and being not trained well enough and being militarized by being given, excess or old equipment from the military because, they just want to spend more or, the military now. Just,
all right.
It's irresponsible to the chief to say that kind of thing.
Got it. You want to respond to that? Thank you.
Well, if Americans have the technology and they have learned how to use it, they are going to use it, and that is their right.
Well, then you must disagree with the chief in saying that those videos that are taken by citizens and posted on social media are
I think saying it's an injustice, I think that's a pretty strong indictment of the technology.
Yeah, so you don't agree with that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Anything else besides economic justice, what can be done? What else can be done to help these African Americans get out of gangs, get off the street, get into school, stay into school, get a decent job, and quit committing these crimes?
The last thing to die in individuals is a hope.
Mm-hmm.
These young people get into gangs because that's where they think they have some hope.
That's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, but that is, I think, a fact.
I hate to hear that.
I think that is a fact. How do we create an environment where these young people have some hope in a future that's going to benefit them?
Don't know.
Okay, and I think it has to start with some kind of economic program that would give these young people a stake in the society. And right now, I don't think they feel they have a stake in this society.
They feel they have nothing.
That's right.
Yeah. Pastor, good to see you. We're out of time. I don't want to get cut off, but I know you'll come back.
If you'll invite me, I'll come back.
All right. Thank you for your time. You're a good man.
Well, thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Well, you generated a lot of calls. You're a popular guy, by the way. I just want to say that.
Thank you very much.
That's Pastor.
I want to commend your technician over there. She seems to be quite
Carrie?
Yeah.
I like Carrie.
Yeah,
she does one heck of a bang-up job, my friends.
Yes,
all right? She
job.
does a good job.
Yeah.
Hats off to Carrie. That is Pastor Ruben Scott of the Providence Community Baptist Church here in Fresno over by Edison High. See you tomorrow. Another show. Connect with me on MeTV Fresno. no wonder why the city of Fresno and so many Valley businesses choose McHenry Protective and Investigative Services. With over 50 years of experience in public safety and security, McHenry's team of experts will safeguard you, your commercial property, and your next big event. Professional service, marked patrol vehicles, 24-hour dispatch, and friendly, observant, and responsive armed and